Right, okay, folks, welcome to the Friday Waffle once again, and I've got a special guest. Well, no, he's not special.
No,
He's
he's
just a
not
guest.
special at all. Yeah.
Fucking regular. Aye, Lukozer. You know him. You've seen him before. There's not going to be any questions this week. It's I've actually managed to come up with a topic that Lukozer messaged me earlier on about taking part in this, and I thought, yep, I'll give me 10 minutes and I'll come up with something. And I quite literally, I was that close, in fact, even less than that, from messaging saying, there's nothing to talk about. I have quite literally discussed everything there is to talk about with video games. I didn't want to. There was a video that we made a couple of weeks ago, or last week, I think it was, which I've yet to put out. And there was a part of that I thought, oh wait a minute, we're kind of stepping on toes. And then there's a video that I'm going to be taking part in your channel, and it's kind of going to be stepping on toes as well. So I thought, no, can I do that? So what we're going to be talking about is what do you call it? Computer video games, computer magazines. Yeah, they've been coming out for bloody years since obviously computers were a thing. But did you buy a lot of computer magazines back in the day? And what was your kind of first? This is going to be an extremely short video if you said you never bought them.
Thankfully, I did. While those watching may not be quite so thankful. I reckon the first one was also the first one that you got because it would have been the home computer course.
Good. I completely forgot all about that. That would absolutely be the very, very first one. Did you have? It came out. In fact, I'm not going to piss about with looking for screenshots. I think it came out in 1983. Something niggles me. It was 83.
It's got to be somewhere around that sort of time, yeah. And I got every single one. And do you remember also that once that finished, they then did a follow-up one called the Home Computer Advanced course.
The advanced, yep. I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I only got something like the first two or three sort of like editions of that. I couldn't get into that one quite so well.
You can. I've got the lot in PDF if you're interested.
The advanced one,
Yeah.
not really. The thing that I really liked about the home computer course was when they would show, like the insides and the PCBs and that of all the different computers. That was the number one reason why I got it. From day one, my real sort of like area of enthusiasm has always been hardware. Software, I don't know the first fucking thing about it.
I'm just going to. I think since we're talking about it, I think we should at least look at it. The home computer course. It was as soon as the I don't know, the media, whatever you want to call it, realised that hang on, there's this newfangled thing called a home computer. Wait a minute, there's money to be made, and I think that's pretty much when it came out. The interesting thing was I got my mum and dad, or my mum, whatever it was, bought me issue 1, and I didn't even have a computer at that point. But at that point, I think there was TV programs, there was things like Micro Live and the home computer program and all this kind of bollocks. And as a child or a teenager growing up in the UK, it was like magical, and I wanted to consume every part of this new thing, and including what you're talking about, looking inside a computer. This is a processor, this is memory, etc. Let me try and find it. I do have it somewhere.
In fact, thinking about it, I think it must have come out in '82 because, like you, we started buying that magazine before we actually had a home computer.
Aye.
It didn't predate it by a hell of a lot, but yeah, we did start buying that before we got our 64.
There it's there. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's not that. Hang on. Screen 2. Bink. There we go. The home computer. Yeah. God, that, you know what? Just seeing that picture brings back so many memories.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember the front cover, but that looks very much like he's using a Spectrum there. Yeah, he
Yeah,
is,
there you
yeah.
go. And you could 60 computers to be one. So yeah, this came out. When did you say it came out?
Well,
Does it say?
I'm thinking it came out around 1982.
Well, man, it's got the date there, bottom right, bottom left, even. 1983.
Oh, 83.
There we
Okay.
go, and it was a whopping 80 pence. Uh, yeah, I mean, so I've got so many vivid memories of just, getting this magazine. Like I said, I didn't even have like yourself, I didn't even own a computer, and I just pored over every page of it, especially the when you get to. I know we've looked at that loads of times. The double spread. There you
Yeah.
go. You had
Yeah.
it gave you the sort of a kind of a mini review of every single computer, and you know, I knew what one I wanted right away. It was a Commodore 64, but I was never going to get it. So, at what point when you bought that magazine, how long did you have to wait before you actually got a computer?
No, it was only a few weeks. I think certainly by the time edition 4 came along, I think we had one then.
Mm. And what was that? The C64?
Yeah, yeah. And it was literally a spur of the moment decision because I kept chopping and changing, and for some reason, even though 82, 83, so I'd have been either 10 or 11, but my mum and dad were constantly just listening to me and my suggestions. And we were this close to getting an Atari 600 XL. I think it's fair to say we made the right choice by saying, no, fuck it, we'll get a Commodore 64 instead.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, yeah, I remember I had an awareness of these two machines. The local computer shop. I mean, it was I was into computers probably about a year and a half, 2 years before they became like common. Your John Menzies. Back then, it was only this one computer shop. This one guy, he had a little computer shop. It was no bigger than probably double the size of this bedroom that I'm in, and he was an Atari dealer. So I used to, when me and my mates got wind of this place that had computers, we used to go up and we used to go in and just look. We just literally we didn't. He would never really let you play them, but we just used to kind of look, and and I remember seeing like Bruce Lee in summer games, and it's just like it's just it was a new world, and obviously it had the Atari. You had the Atari 400 and the Atari 800. I says, but looking at this magazine, yeah, the Commodore 64. I mean, there was shit like the Jupiter Ace and God knows what else. But what's interesting is when you actually see just how many computers. So if you were going to buy a computer, I mean, I think the purpose of this sort of magazine was to try and give you some hint as to what computer you had to buy. I mean, there was how many? Four, eight, six. So you had a choice of 16 computers. How the hell do you know what one to buy?
And this wasn't even all of them. So, I mean, this particular couple of pages, I don't think anybody was ever going to, base their decision on what they were going to buy purely on this, because I mean it's just a tiny little, section for each one.
Yeah.
If it was a computer that wasn't quite so well known, and you were buying this magazine in particular, you wanted to wait because you knew all of these computers were going to be covered when they were doing looking at the insides of it. So I think in issue 1 it was the Spectrum, And so, yeah, you knew all of the computers were going to be covered, and they would go into much more depth as to, you know, the ins and outs, the pluses, the minuses, and everything else. Then you would have had a better idea of, you know, what was worth getting.
I forgot about that. That's right. So this did it concentrate in one computer I was going to say each episode, each issue. Was that right?
Well, only as far as, like, you know, the showing the internals and all that. It was one particular computer each week.
Aye, aye.
So of course there were others that they covered that were not in that initial, you know, section
Summary
there.
thing.
Yeah.
Aye, I mean, this took it right back to like literally what is a computer? How do computers think? Blah 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 blah. But yeah, so this came out in 1983. So I mean, this was I subscribed, or I didn't subscribe. I think what would you call it? You went down to the news agents and you told them that you wanted this magazine, and they delivered it.
That's all we did. Yeah.
Aye, so I got the first. I mean, how many? I can't remember how many issues there were, but
24.
I got that, and I don't think I can't actually remember the advanced computer one becoming. Let's have a quick look. I'll close that. Yeah, so I think let's see. That was for some weird reason. If you bought the first one, it's a double issue. You get issue 2 free. I don't remember it being double as thick.
No, it was two separate issues, and you had this sort of like, you know, this sort of laminated card folder that the two issues came in.
I
remember that.
Yeah. Have you still got yours, by the way? Yeah.
I think we have somewhere. Fuck knows where, but yeah, I think we do, because we also got the binders. So all of ours got put into the binders. So yeah, we got we went all out on this one.
Yeah, so there was that, and let's have a quick look. I'm sure issue 3 might be in the Commodore 64. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. God, that just honestly brings back so many happy memories when I see that. So yeah, well, I mean these were pretty. They were pretty. How would you describe it? They weren't really. I mean, it didn't really. It touched on games, explained. You know, you could play various games in it, but it was more about. Well, there you go. It was more about mastering your home computer in 24 weeks. I think it touched on programming as well, did it not?
Yeah, it did. It was rather like the television programs at the time. It had this snobby looking down on gaming and treating it as, oh, this is a total waste of time and all this. Computers shouldn't be used for gaming. Of course, all the magazines and all the television programs that treated gaming like that had to, you know, basically eat their words, because it was the computers that had the large game libraries that were successful. And you can imagine that, you know, the editor or whatever of this thing and the producers of the television programs absolutely hating that, but there was no getting away from it, you know.
Well, you saw, if you ever watched any of the, I mean, there was quite a few different like computer type programs that were on the BBC. They all had Ian McNaught-Davis. There was like, what was it? I think that it was the computer program. That was the first one, which came out when the BBC became the sort of computer of choice for schools. And then I think you had, I don't know, did the Making of the Micro, did that come out before? I think Micro Live came out, and then Making
I remember that one.
The Micro. Yeah, and it was, they never ever showed you games, and on the very odd occasion, Ian McNaught-Davis would say, oh, well, they also play stupid games, you know, they really look down their nose at games. Yeah,
totally. You'd often have Fred Harris appearing on programs like that as well, but at least he didn't look down on gaming. He just treated it as, well, actually, I reckon he was probably told, don't talk about games. In fact, I don't think he had a problem with it. And then on ITV, you had Tony Bastapor, who was always obsessed with Russian spies being able to buy computer parts really cheaply from Britain, and it was like, what the fuck are you talking about, pal? So yeah, it's fair to say that the television programs in particular around this sort of time, yeah, they did not talk a load of shit. The magazines were better, but they still had this snobby, looking down on gamers attitude, which, well, I say it backfired on them,
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite sure. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking bollocks. I would imagine when all these boffins were kind of, putting together the very first home computer, they never really had it that it was going to be used for playing games. It was going to revolutionise industry. We could all sit in our houses, work. We could work 4-day weeks because computers, they would be doing everything for us. And obviously, once they became available, more affordable, and games came out, then as you say, it was the games. People bought the computer because it could play the most games.
Yeah, and of course, it was really the Atari VCS was the number one reason why uh, people wanted computers for games, because you had most people, even if they didn't actually own an Atari VCS. I mean, I freely admit we were fucking lucky that we had one. But most people actually knew someone who had one, and if you got bitten by the bug, as we both were, big time, playing games on Atari VCS, it was like, yeah, that's it. This is the future of, well, playing games. You weren't going to be playing board games or whatever anymore. And you were going to use this thing. So, of course, when the computers came along, they could do a lot more, but they still also had the the potential to play like really decent games on them. So of course all the gamers jumped on the opportunity of getting a computer which could do well, theoretically could do all this guff that they were talking about in programs like Micro Live and what have you. But you could also play games with it. It's so it gives you the chance to do absolutely everything. And that was the attitude to have, but in the early days, very few people did. So it was all this, gaming's a waste of time and blah blah blah.
Mm.
And it wasn't.
Sorry, no, you go on. You go on.
I was just going to say, it wasn't until a couple of years later that magazine publishers finally caught on. It's like, you know what? Why don't we do a magazine instead of just about computers and with this snobby looking down our nose at it? Let's do a magazine that is actually aimed at people who play games. And shock horror, they were far more popular, and they were selling way more copies than these other magazines that stubbornly stuck to the whole, oh yes, computers are absolutely serious, and
Thing.
yeah.
The interesting thing, I mean, for me personally, when I kind of became aware of computers, and it was probably watching things like not Micro Live, watching things like the computer program, and then I got like this magazine. I got the Home Computer Course magazine. I was excited because it was a thing. I wasn't excited because I could play games, and I was excited because it was this thing that it was new. It was brand new because we'd kind of come from like the 70s where it was like skipping ropes and riding your bike and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then all right, you had things like these things behind me, this sort of the computer, the little LED, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
These were extremely basic, but that was what we had, and then suddenly, bang! Space Invaders. We saw Space Invaders in the local chippy, and it was like, fucking hell, what? This is incredible. This, we can interact, and then computers came along, and on the sort of piggybacked came along, and suddenly, we could type our name onto the TV, and that I was excited. I loved looking at, like, I mean, for anybody of a certain age is probably going to listen to us and think, God almighty, these guys are fucking saddos getting excited with talking about resistors and programming language and basic and all that. But all that was so new that I was excited about reading all these things. And when I first got my computer, the first thing I wanted to do was just type my name and, go to bloody 10, all this kind of stuff. And then on the back part of that was some magazines came out, which we'll talk about shortly. There was like listings you could type in, and you type that in, you could play a game for free. And then games started becoming more and more mainstream to the point that eventually I stopped being interested in anything else it was doing. All I was wanting to do was play games on it. And that's how it became for me.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail on the head there when you were saying that it was new. If you were around at that sort of time as we were, this was all like absolutely like bleeding edge technology. We were right there. We were seeing it from the very start, and of course I was absolutely hooked on it right from the word go. Yeah. So I wanted to know as much about it as I could. I wanted to experience as much of it as I could. So I didn't care about the fact that I had Commodore 64, which was a great computer. If we went into a shop and they had a computer on display, I didn't care what it was. I wanted to try it out. We weren't going to buy it because we already had one, but and that's how I ended up trying out like the Auric One and the Lynx and the Atari 400 and nearly breaking my fingers trying to type something on there, and stuff like that. But it was a new computer. It was one I'd not used before, and of course none of them were compatible with each other. So it's not like you could say, oh, okay, right, I'll take my Colour Genie. I never saw one of those things. I'll run this program here. Right, okay, you stick it into your Jupiter Ace and away you go. No, you couldn't do anything like that. And that was another thing, actually. Even though it's massively impractical, I did actually quite like the fact that all of the computers were their own completely standalone system. If you had a 64, there was a good chance all your mates all had Spectrums. So none of the games that you had were going to be they couldn't use them on theirs, and and then you always knew somebody who got something like Dragon 32, and of course they didn't know anybody else who had one of theirs, So I was absolutely hooked on all of that, and it was great. But you had to be there at the time.
It's hard to kind of explain to people, who are a lot younger, just how exciting it was. Before we got a computer, or I mean, I never had an Atari 2600, but I mean, I used to fantasize about owning one. I always remember it was like £99.99, and I always just thought if I could somehow get £100, but my pocket money was like 50 pence a week. I need £100. My mum and dad said, no, we're not buying you one. We can't afford it. Don't ask. And I just knew I wouldn't ask. And there was just no way I would ever get one. And then when the computers came along, I was able to kind of, and it quite literally was, I was able to sort of convince my mum and dad, I could do my homework in this thing. And we can.
We all use that line, yeah.
Do my homework.
Yeah. Did you also? Well, my dad was self-employed at the time, and I remember using the line as well. Oh yeah, you can put everything from your business onto the computer, and I can do all that for you. Yeah, I use that line as well. Yeah.
Spreadsheets and databases and all that, and typing letters and all that, but. I can't remember exactly when I can't remember exactly how long it took. When I got issue 1 of the home computer course, I said eventually my mum and dad went for the Texas. They agreed, right, we'll get you a computer for your birthday. In fact, it must have been the October of that year, so I don't know when that came out. It must have been 3-4 months later. They said, right, we'll get you a computer for your birthday. and I could get the Spectrum. I knew there was no way I was going to. I didn't ask for a Commodore 64 because there was no way I was going to get one. I said, get the Spectrum, Dad. And they said, right, well, we're going to go to Comet. We're going to go to Comet to buy your computer, but you can't come because it's a surprise. And instead of buying me the Spectrum, they bought me the Texas. But prior to getting the computer, I mean, I could not digest enough information about computers, whether it was talking about how a keyboard's made and what's a sprite and all this kind of stuff. And some of the screenshots and pictures in that magazine are forever burned into my brain as just happy memories. And when I got to the point I was actually going to own my own computer, I'm like, wow, I can now do the things. I can now type in these little programs that I've read about. Mental, absolutely mental.
No, yeah. It was good stuff. It was a great time to be into computers.
It's probably
much better than today.
Yeah. Even, I mean, I don't think. I mean, the internet was a big thing for me. I mean, it was, but I don't think anything before or after has come close to the excitement for me is getting a computer or playing a video game for the very first time. It's like,
yeah,
it's revolutionary.
And it never went away because obviously,
yeah.
Well, I was like, unbelievably excited when we got the Atari VCS, and then when we got the Commodore 62, I was like, oh fucking yeah, okay. And even though I was well into my teens, it was exactly the same when we got the Amiga. I was like, fucking hell, yeah. I remember to this day when we got the Amiga, because I was absolutely convinced we weren't going to get one because they were fucking expensive. They were like, 550 quid at the time.
Yeah.
And I'd been on about getting an Atari ST, which at least were cheaper. And then I remember there was one day, my dad asked me a question, and it didn't really sort of like sink in at first originally. But he said to me, this Atari ST, right, is that the best one that's out there? And I said to him, well, no, the best one out there is the Amiga. I didn't actually know that at the time. I just knew that the Amiga was more expensive, and I equated more expensive means it must be better. So I said to him, well, no, actually, the Amiga is probably the better one. And he was like, oh, okay. And he left it at that. And then it was like, it was about 2 weeks later or so. I came home from my school, school friends. And he just said, oh, yeah, there's something over there for you. Fucking Amiga $500. Like, holy shit. So yeah, it never went away.
Aye. What's interesting was, I mean, in fact, I'd kind of, I got into computers. I got into computers very early, but because I'm an old fart, I was it was like the last year of me being at school, and then I started working. Everybody, virtually, well, there was always a few of the cool kids that were more, they were the good-looking guys. They had all the chicks and all that, and there was like the rest of us. We just played computer games all the time. But so many people that my mates and that had computers, and there's very few of us. In fact, I'm probably the only one in my kind of friendship group that is still into video games. And it's interesting, people they were into the hobby as much as I was, but then over the preceding years they kind of dropped off and went on to other things. Whereas it's just never left me. The excitement, here I am, we're fucking 56-year-olds still talking about the same stuff over and over again. It's because I love talking about it.
I guess I'm pretty much the same. I did go through a couple of phases where I wasn't quite so interested in them, but it never lasted that long. I think the longest it went was about 3 years, and that was when the Amiga was pretty much on its way out. and so I just so I left it, and yeah, so 3 years without really bothering about computers, and then of course got the first PC, and of course it all came back, and yeah, it's never gone away since then. Yeah.
Of course, the computers kind of changed because obviously the PC was the PC. I mean, the computers before then were regarded by most people that weren't into computers as like, you know, sort of what do you call it? They were just like toys, you know. Again, how old are you and you're playing computer games? Whereas the PC, you know, it was like a piece of furniture. A lot of people would have a room with the PC in it. But yeah, I was the same. I forgot about that in my life. I had about 2 years. Probably when would it be? I don't know, 1989, about 1990. I sold my Commodore. I sold my Amiga because I needed money for something else. It was a deposit in a house actually. My girlfriend at the time, she had money saved up, and I had fuck all saved up. And I thought, I suppose I should sell my computer and get some money. And so for about 2 years, I had nothing. I kind of no, I still remember I didn't own any system, but I used to go to like the news agents and just pick up magazines and read about the Amiga and the Sega Mega Drive and all that. But I didn't have anything, and then eventually got a PC, and then yeah, just as you kind of as prices came down, I was able to buy stuff. I meet the obviously emulators and all that kind of stuff. But kind of getting back to kind of not video games, computer magazines. So did you ever buy any of like the real early sort of like I can't even remember like Computing Today and all that kind of personal computer, all these really fuddy duddy kind of dull magazines? Did you ever buy any of these at all?
I think we got like a couple of the early editions of like Commodore User, but that was about it. Yeah, we didn't really bother too much with those magazines, because the thing I always remember about them is it was like at least 50% adverts. The actual like content of the magazine itself was tiny.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't all that fussed about getting any of those.
Aye.
Yeah, it wasn't really my sort of thing.
Aye. I mean, I think, what was it called again? Commodore User. You said it
Commodore
was.
User, yeah.
Aye. Let's see if I've probably got Commodore User somewhere. If I remember rightly, it was what you were talking about earlier on. It was quite a stuffy magazine. It was I don't know, computers in the workplace and all this kind of bollocks. And then they'd have a little kind of games section.
Yeah.
And that was before they were obviously still trying to hang on to computers are serious, and you can get one for your business and all this kind of stuff. And they
Yeah.
had this little bit about games, and then through time, obviously, I think they realised, wait a minute, games is where it's at. And
Yeah,
then all these funny bloody magazines, they got kind of punted to the side.
and yet most of the adverts, like the vast majority, were adverts for games. So it's like, well, no, so you don't mind gaming if they're paying you for advertising space, but other than that, yeah, games are shit.
I can't. I know, where's a Commodore User? That's odd. I don't actually have this. I've got fucking so many bloody magazines, but I don't know if Commodore World, Commodore Format, Jesus, Commodore Disk User, Amiga Shopper. But yeah, there was all these kind of. I mean, I think in fact the first magazine that I think they obviously realised, wait a minute, why don't we just concentrate on games? Because that's what the kids want. And it was computer and video games. That was the first big kind of gaming magazine in the UK. Did you kind of buy that at all?
No, never bought a
Really?
single edition of it. It wasn't until Zap 64 came along that I started buying. Because the thing with CMVG is that it was for like multiple systems, and I was
Yeah.
only interested in the one that I had. So I just thought, no, I'll leave that one.
Aye. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I had the Texas. I mean, there wasn't a Texas
Yeah,
magazine.
Yeah, TI-99-4A user. Yeah, I don't remember seeing that one in WH Smith. Yeah.
I was quite literally the only person in the UK that owned the Texas.
No, you weren't, because I had one as well.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I did have one. Yeah,
Did you buy that?
I got it second hand for about 25 quid. And just like I was saying about, wanting to try any computers in shops because it was one I didn't have. As soon as my dad said, "Oh yeah, I know someone who's selling this computer. They only want 25 quid for it." I was like, "Yeah, okay, we'll have it." So yeah, for like a couple of months or so, I was just ponting about programming on a TI 99-4A. But I never played a single game on it. We didn't have any games for the thing.
No, well, I don't know if you caught my Sunday stream, whatever day it was, Sunday, funnily enough. I
think it might have been.
I can't actually bloody remember. But I only ever had one game, and it was a game that I bought in mail order called Core, and it was fucking awful. And one of the guys that watches my channel managed to, he happened to see this game on somebody else's YouTube channel. So him and I contacted the guy that put the video, and I says, "Look, that was the very first game I ever bought and played. I don't suppose you could send me the image." So he sent me a WAV file from it, which I couldn't load into anything. But then the guy Ox, he managed to convert it to a disk file, but it was written in BASIC, and I was able to finally, after 40 odd years, load up Core for the first time. And it's whilst graphically it wasn't quite as bad as I remember it to be, the gameplay is still bloody rotten. So I quite literally I had one game for it, and that was it. And it was absolute shite. So anyway, yeah, one of my mates was studying IT. It wasn't called IT. What was it called? It was just called computer studies, I think it was. He was studying computers at was it Newcastle Polytechnic, I think it was. And he came back home for a couple of weeks, and he wanted to come and see me because he knew I had a computer. I was the first person to have a computer, and he managed to kind of program. It was like a kind of when I say a Defender clone, the only bit he managed to get working was he got the ship moving up and down, and the fire. You know, when you fire in Defender, it kind of puts a line and he goes,
yeah,
and he breaks up. He managed to get the firing perfect, and then he fucked off back down to the Polytechnic, and that was all I could play. So it was either playing Core or loading up this Defender ship that moved up and down and firing. And that was it. I quite literally had nothing. And then I got wind of computer and video games, and I thought, oh, there's bound to be a game in there. And I don't know, it was always the TRS-80 or the Dragon 32, or more likely the Spectrum. And then on the very odd occasion you get the VIC-20, and I think twice there was a game for the Texas, but I can't even remember typing these things in. But that was it. And then I said, unfortunately, I managed to sell that and get a Commodore 64. But yeah, I mean, seeing VG, as you say, it was a multi-format. It covered lots of different computers. But I think its big selling point, well, it was one of the first kind of gaming magazines to come out, but it did have the type-ins. And, back in 1983, computer games were quite thin in the ground and they were expensive. So getting to like get a game for like 75 pence was like, I'll have some of that. But did you never actually enjoyed the pleasures of typing in a game?
No, I was never into the whole thing of typing out games or programs from magazines. My mum was big on doing that for some reason.
Your mum?
Of all people, she was. She used to like doing all of that, and then she couldn't work out why it would never work properly after she spent fucking hours typing it in.
I could never because what used to happen, they would publish the type in, and this is the thing that you really used to hack me off. You would get like ZX Invaders. It would be like a Spectrum, Space Invaders clone for Spectrum, and it was like a page and a half, and then you'd get some shitty horse race and betting game for the Commodore 64, and it was like 6 pages. It's like, fucking hell, with like twice the amount of stuff to type in. Like,
Yeah. The 64's basic wasn't great, was it? So that didn't help.
that was an understatement. The only time me and my mate decided, right, you read it out, I'll type. And we typed in this game, I can't remember what the hell it was called. We typed it in, and as soon as we finished, I just typed run, and it just went to a black screen. And it's like, run, stop, nope, restore, nope.
Yep.
Fucking hell, we literally spent like 2 hours typing this thing in. And instead of doing the clever thing and saving it,
yeah.
We just ran it. Oh, I just immediately ran it, and it just didn't work. And that was the end of my typing stuff in career. But the only other time I ever did it, and we're jumping ahead a wee bit, was in Zap magazine. Andrew Braybrook published a basic routine that had, I think it had a bit of machine code in it or something, but it was a basic thing he typed in, and what he said was that it would give you something like 25% more speed in your Commodore 64. Or he says, just
that sounds highly unlikely, but yeah, go on.
But it's Andrew Braybrook telling us this.
Let me guess, it was an April Fool's thing, was it?
It was, yeah, and you wouldn't know. You typed it all in, and then you ran it, and it just came up April Fool. Wow. So, yeah, and I never did like the guy after that. His games were shit, but...
yeah. Now we know why did the conversion of Rainbow Islands. You heard you saying that, after doing that, you couldn't stand the cunt, so you thought, well, I'll get my own back.
But, I mean, computing video games, it was at least they realised, I mean, they used to have a little 2-page bit in the middle, which was arcade games. Never believe. I mean, I remember like looking at the arcade games. What was the one game I remember seeing? 10-yard. Is it 10-yard fight? It's called the Namco game, the American football.
Oh, the thing that looked a little bit like Breakout.
No. It's an American football game. 10-yard fight. You must have played it in Maine before.
Yeah, American football. The chances are I didn't go anywhere near it, but
things like screenshots of Zaxxon, and you had your home computer, and then you had the arcade screenshots. It's like, that I can only dream about that. Never realising that 35 years later you'd be playing the arcade versions on your home computer.
Yeah.
Which was something else. But yeah, I mean, the computer video games were a great magazine. I says it did cater for everybody, so you would only maybe have 1 or 2 reviews for your machine. Obviously, as we got into the sort of like 1984s, 85s, pretty much all the 80%, probably 95% of the other computers that were featured kind of dropped away, and all you were left with really would be, I suppose, the VIC-20, Commodore 64, and ZX Spectrum.
Yeah. I'm not even sure the VIC-20, not in 84 or 85. I think the VIC-20 would have...
Probably not. Did you ever own a VIC-20?
No, I knew a couple of people who did have VIC-20s. They were good machines for their day.
Aye.
There are aspects of them that I still like to this day, because the sound effects on a VIC-20 were fucking great.
The sound effects in the VIC-20 is great, and it's a machine that maybe it was Jeff Minter. That was his kind of first main kind of machine. But there are certain games in the VIC-20. It's almost like the VIC-20. I think even the colours were more. It was kind of more vibrant looking than like the C64, wasn't it? Did it have a kind of...
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think of that as being a big plus point. I did quite like the somewhat muted colours on the 64. I didn't like them being too bright, which of course was the big problem with the Spectrum. I think the VIC's its colours were rather on the vivid side, overly so. I think.
I think the VIC. I mean, I'd never. The only time I saw VIC-20 was when it was like in the shops. My mates never had one. I never had one, so it completely passed me by. It's only been in the intervening 30 odd years, 40 years that I've kind of got to use the VIC-20 through emulation, and it was almost like the home computer version of the Atari 2600. It knew its
Yeah.
limitations, but some of the games were just fucking fantastic for it.
Well, I was convinced back then, and to a degree I still am, the biggest rival for the VIC-20 was the Atari 2600, especially in this country. In America, maybe not so. I think the fucking god-awful TRS-80 was one of its rivals, and I guess the original like Apple or the Apple II or whatever would have been one as well. But yeah, over here, I do think the 2600 was the big one. That was the one that it was sort of like going up against.
Yeah. Obviously, games were much cheaper. How much was an average Atari 2600 game? Was it like 20, 30 quid or something? Was it?
No, it's about 15 quid, but bearing in mind that, yeah, we're talking about, 1979, 80, 81. I mean, 15 quid was a fucking lot.
It was. Yeah, you got a week's messages for that. Yeah. So kind of, yeah, mid 80, 85, 84, 85, it was pretty much the Spectrum and the Commodore 64 that was getting featured. But then, of course, the bloody hell, 1985, May 1985, a certain Commodore 64 magazine arrived, which I think pretty much changed the landscape of computer and video games magazines, and it was Zap.
Yeah. Future Publishing were clearly on a winner because Crash had already come out, I think.
Yeah.
And they'd seen the popularity of a magazine that was dedicated entirely to the Spectrum, so it was inevitable that a 64 version was going to come along, and yeah, so of course we got Zap, and it did not take long for it to make its mark, did it?
What's interesting about Crash? I think they used to get. I mean, you wouldn't get away with that nowadays. I think they used to invite school kids in to play games, and they'd say, "Right, what do you think of that?" And kids would literally review the games for them.
Oh, okay, I didn't know they'd done they did that. Yeah, I can't see them getting away with that today. I don't think anyone would want to. I mean, Jesus, can you imagine working somewhere and you got a load of fucking school kids to put up with? Jesus Christ. I'd end up being fucking banged up by the end of the week if it was me.
But I think I don't know how earlier Crash came out. I mean, Crash was obviously it was like a magazine that was written by computer gamers, and obviously the Future Publishing cottoned on and thought, wait a minute, this is actually quite popular. Let's bring out a version for the Commodore 64. So it launched in May 1985. I still remember being down at the newsagents and seeing this magazine, and it obviously had a wonderful cover from Oliver Frey of
yeah.
the Zap, but not the Zap, the bloody Elite. What was the name of your Cobra Mark II?
Cobra,
I think it was
Mark III.
Let's see if I can find
Get it right.
Yeah, was it a Mark III?
Yeah. The Mark One was also in the game, not the Mark II though. But yeah, you were flying the Mark III.
So did you buy Zap when it first came out?
No, I forget what issue it was when I first started buying it. But yeah, I didn't have issue 1. Rather a controversial one, wasn't it? Especially their review of Elite itself. Yeah.
I mean, look at that. That is a fucking fantastic front cover.
Yeah, I can't tell what any of the other ships are. I mean, yeah, you can clearly see the Cobra Mark III, but yeah, I don't know what any of the others are meant to be.
No.
They might be adders, but yeah.
Beautiful cover. So there you go. I mean, that just kind of, you couldn't not be wowed with that. What do you call it? That cover.
Cover.
Yeah, there we go. 50 pages of reviews. You were talking about what was the magazine you were talking about? It had mostly adverts.
Commodore User, yeah. So much of it was fucking adverts.
It's interesting when you look at
Zap certainly had its fair share of adverts as well. No denying that.
what I found quite surprising, because I don't know, I've kind of got a feature on my channel where I read a magazine and I talk, I read it and just kind of talk over it. There's a lot of black and white. There's one of your favourite games. You a fan of Gribbly's Day Out?
Yeah, I don't mind Gribbly's Day Out. I couldn't help noticing on the first or the page previous to that, they were already advertising fucking Street Hawk. Even then,
Did that game never actually got reviewed? Is that never got finished?
no, not on the 64. It didn't. It was about 95% done, and Ocean pulled the plug on it.
Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Yeah, let's have a quick. There's the reviewers themselves. What I always thought was hilarious, they were asking. Where the hell is it? Oh, there's Elite you're talking about. They were asking the programmers what they thought. Oh, world's greatest machine. Where the hell is it? Oh, I thought Archer McLean. Archer McLean was interviewed saying, "Oh, what do you think of the Commodore 64?" And he actually said, "Well, it's a good machine, but the Atari is much better. It's much quicker." Which,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Atari 800 was the machine he was used to at the time, so yeah, I suppose it would be understandable why he would say that then. But I mean, look at that. They gave it a fucking gold medal. And of course, the big problem with this was only one of them actually got to review it, because Gary Penn and Julian Rignall weren't there. They were off doing some publicity work somewhere or other. So it was only Bob Wade. And he massively overrated it. And I don't know for sure, but I think this is the reason he got the boot.
Is that right? Yeah. Interesting. You're right, actually. So these, bloody hell. So Julian Rignall and thing we never actually got to. Look at hell.
Yeah, they never actually reviewed it. And when they finally got to try it out, yeah, they were not impressed. And they were saying, yeah, Bob Wade had just he got caught up in all the hype around it. I mean, it's not that Elite is not a good game. Of course it fucking is. But the 64 version it's the worst of the 8-bit versions. It's so slow. It's so flickery that it was good enough. I mean, it had to be, because if you had a 64 and you wanted to play Elite, here you go. It was this or nothing.
Yeah.
But it didn't compare to the BBC version. And although the Spectrum version didn't look as good as the 64 version, I mean, it didn't flicker. It ran faster. It was a lot smoother, and
I think the definitive version you play is it the BBC, I think, the original.
No, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But I mean, he gave it 95%, and I must admit, I mean, I went right out and just bought the game, and I have to say, I thought it was at the time, I thought it was a fantastic game.
Oh yeah, I mean, I thought the game was great, but yeah, even then, I knew the BBC version was a lot better than this.
Just it did mention there C64 versus the BBC. There you go. Whoops. There we go. The first thing he said is that the game runs quite a bit more slowly in the C64. This is caused by a combination of the fact that the central processor on the BBC runs at a higher speed, and vector graphics are harder to program. However, we don't think this detracts significantly from the game. In actual gameplay, the 64 graphics do not seem slow at all. you only notice the difference between running the two sides versions side by side. That's the thing. I mean, I never ever saw the Amiga one, not Amiga one. I never saw the BBC one ever running. So what you don't know, you don't miss, and that was pretty much, I thought it was a great game. Aye. So I mean, yeah, Zap 64. I mean, what do you think? What do you think made it such a good magazine?
Well, it helped that the main writers for it were roughly the same age as the sort of age group that it was aimed at, so it didn't talk down to you at all. It's sort of like, it talked to you like on an equal level. So yeah, that certainly helped. The fact that the way the reviews were done, the actual bulk of the write-up is just explaining about the game. But if you wanted to ignore all that, you would have like the clearly marked sections where the reviewers were actually giving their their opinions. Yeah, so you could just go straight to like okay, I want to know if this is a good game or not. Because you couldn't always go by the scores, because sometimes they would say, oh yeah, everything about it is great, but then you read the opinions and you'd see, yeah, there might have been like one or two caveats there, and it was like, oh, this is a fantastic game, but you need to be pretty good at whatever genre it was in order to enjoy it. If you're not like shit hot at shoot 'em ups, you'd probably be better off staying away from it. Which is fine, except of course that two of their reviewers were Gary Penn and Julian Rignall, who were both like really good gamers.
Yeah.
So a game that they would find, relatively challenging, us mere mortals would get absolutely fuck all nowhere on.
Did you have a particular reviewer, if he liked the game, you thought, I'm going to like the game?
Yeah, Julian Rignall.
I was, yeah. Gary Penn was always quite cantankerous. He was always, you'd have Gary Liddon and Julian Rignall giving it all that, and then Gary Penn would be like that, kind of, I'm not that keen on it, blah 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 blah. He was always kind of harder to please. So usually, if Gary Penn liked the game, you knew it was going to be good. But pretty much if Julian Rignall liked the game, I would just go and buy it. As long as it was kind of the type of game that I would play.
I was like that to a degree. I certainly go along with what you're saying about Gary Penn, which was actually a thing that I liked about him. So yeah, there were occasions you'd have like you say, Rignall and Liddon both saying this is great. But Gary Penn would be like the voice of reason. He'd be like, hang on, there are a couple of caveats here, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes, because the thing with reviews is it's someone's opinion.
Yeah.
And, your opinion could be totally different, as, we know from, well, you don't actually do reviews, but, so, okay, right, we'll use my example, like my reviews. There are games that did not score very well in Zap, but I think are great. The obvious example is V. I think V is a fantastic game, but they only gave it 40%. They didn't rate it. And then some of the games that they said were great and gave like Sizzler ratings to, and Eyeball 2, they got a fucking Sizzler rating. That fucking piece of shit. It's yeah.
Yeah, so and then there was games like, what was it? Was it Corona? I can't even say the bloody thing. Corona's Rift. They gave that like a gold medal, and it was actually quite a basic game. I mean,
no, I think they only gave that a Sizzler. I quite like Corona's Rift though. I was okay with that. The Eidolon was one that they gave a gold medal to. But of course, worst of all, yeah, they gave her, I'm pretty sure it was a gold medal. At the very least, it was a Sizzler, but I think it was a gold medal, to Ball Blazer. And I bought that game purely on the strength of their review. And what the fuck is this?
I actually watched your review of it a couple of nights ago. Actually, I always thought that it was just me that I just couldn't get on with the game because whilst I'm not a big sports fan, well, I like things like athletics and all that kind of stuff, but football just bores me. But I thought, I love football games. Ball Blazer or futuristic football games going to be great. And then I bought it, and I played it a number of times. I thought I just can't go on with this. I just thought, no, I'm not going back to that. I couldn't get on with it at all. I just didn't like the game.
Yeah, I did not know, to this day I still don't know a single person who thought Ball Blazer was good, let alone deserved the score that Zap64 gave it. I'm probably the most generous person I know towards that game. I think I gave it 4 out of 10 in my review, and that is quite quite a bit higher than just about everybody else I know who has reviewed that game. So I've no idea what was going on in the Zap Towers, as they used to call it, when they were reviewing that fucking thing.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, I'm lucky enough. I mean, Gary Penn was on my video not that long ago, and I think these guys quite literally lived. They played games 24/7. They would eat food, and they were just living and breathing video games constantly. So, I suppose it's possible that when that game dropped in, Gary, the pair of them would start playing a 2-player game, and they were just playing it and playing it and playing it and playing it, and they maybe got to such a level that they kind of clicked. Whereas you and I, you would just be in yourself playing a 1-player game. Oh, this is fucking crap. I don't know, but yeah, it was one of these games. I thought I must be missing something. You load it up. You got the music. You've got the sort of scrolling patchwork chessboard thing. It looks very impressive, and then you play it and you're like, it looks like it's unfinished. I don't really get it. It's totally confusing. The fact that it spins round, it's always facing the way the ball is, and half the time you can't see anything else other than the patterned thing, and that was it.
Oh, I had no problem with that,
Yeah.
but I wasn't expecting it when I bought it. When I bought it, based on the all the screenshots, I thought it was going to be a bit like a sort of souped-up Pong, and so you would catch the ball and fire it over a distance and try to get it past the other person's pod or areas they're in. So of course, when you're actually like moving all around there, and suddenly the view changes so that you are always facing the ball, that completely threw me. But I did get the grips with it, and maybe that's why I'm a bit more generous towards it than so many others. It doesn't mean it was good though. I mean, no, it wasn't
Far
good.
from being a bloody gold medal game. There was one other game that I'm surprised I've never heard you talking about it, and I don't know if you've ever reviewed it. And I think it got a gold medal, and I remember looking at it and thinking, "Oh, that's going to bore me." What was it? The Final Protocol, based on, was it the Jeffrey Archer book or something? It was all like icons and that kind of stuff.
I think the fourth protocol. It's
Fourth Protocol, not
Frederick
Final.
Forsyth book.
Oh, was it? Right.
Yeah. No, I had no interest in that. I didn't mind the book. The film was okay. I had no interest in a game on it.
Yeah. Did you ever get into the? And I always keep thinking I'll need to give it a go and see if it's any good. And I'm sure again it certainly got a sizzler. It might have even got a gold medal. And what was it called? I can tell it was it was a text thing. What was it called? It was by Activision, and you typed in what's your name, when were you
Alter
born?
Ego.
Alter Ego, that's the one. I never ever, to this day, I've never played it, and I keep meaning to give it a go because it got a massive Really good review.
Yeah, got really
Alter
good
Ego.
score.
Yeah.
But hardly anyone bought it, certainly in this country, because it was disc only. So that
That's
ruled out a
right.
lot
Yeah.
of potential buyers. Um, no, that was another one. I saw it, and it just didn't really grab me, and then I saw it was disc only. I was like, oh, fuck that. So, and I didn't really pay a hell of a lot more attention. I've just remembered, of course, another game that they rated really highly. This is worse than Ball Blazer. Yeah, they gave a Sizzler rating to Hercules.
Are you shitting me? Did it
No,
seriously do that?
seriously did that, and
Fucking Sizzler.
both Julian Rignall and Gary Penn both said it was fucking great. Are you fucking serious? Although, to be fair, I actually think then giving a Sizzler rating to Eyeball 2 is worse than then giving a Sizzler rating to Hercules. But that says much more about how much I hate Eyeball 2 than anything else.
Yeah, yeah. Hercules got a Sizzler. That's based on the, what's it called again? Not Leander. Leander's quite a good game.
Yolanda, well, it's the other way round. Yolanda was
Yolanda,
based
that's the one.
on
Yeah.
Hercules, but yeah.
So was Hercules based? Was it the same game as Yolanda?
Yeah, the game was identical.
Oh, was it? Yeah,
jazzed
yeah.
up visuals, and the sound was even worse. But yeah, do you have to talk about that fucking thing?
There was another game that I actually quite liked. I'm sure. I think Zap gave it quite a good thing. Brian Bloodaxe by the Edge.
I never played it.
I
I know that. I know the title. I remember the review, but yeah, I never played it.
It was oddly satisfying. But what did you make of? I mean, we were talking. In fact, we weren't talking about that. But nowadays, no company will take any chances with a new idea for a game. Every game is
Always
same.
sequels. Yeah.
Yeah. But back then, there was so many different. There were so many different ideas. I mean, you had things like Alter Ego and all that kind of stuff. And then they had what was the name of that thing? The Littlest Computer People. Did you ever
Little
try
Computer
that?
People.
Or get a copy of it?
I never did. Never went in for that one.
Yeah.
But I think wasn't that one where they gave the overall score NA because it was just so different.
It's not a game.
Yeah.
Aye.
Which I thought was a bit of a cop out actually, because it was definitely one of those games, or one of those experiences, shall we say. You either loved it or you hated it. I'd never tried it.
I think it was overrated. I think the problem with the game, I mean, it was something new, and it's never. Well, I suppose it has been done before. It was like kind of Tamagotchi for the Commodore 64. The problem with it was they tried to say that it learned and all this kind of stuff. It was just the same things. It was you saw everything it had to offer within about an hour.
Yeah, it's also thanks to that game that we got The Sims, so it has a lot to fucking answer for.
A lot to answer for. Yeah. Was there, apart from Ball Blazer and Hercules and Eyeball, was there ever a game that you thought was completely overrated? You thought,
Bounder. They raved about Bounder. I think they gave it a gold medal. I just thought, what a fucking pile of shit this was. Because a school friend of mine bought it, and he wasn't all that struck on it either. But I just thought it was absolute bollocks.
And on the flip side, was there a game? Well, apart from V, was there? Did they not give bloody Zoids?
It got Sizzler rating, didn't get a gold medal, but they raved about it. Fuck knows why. I mean, music-wise, I would certainly rave about the music, but everything else, there was like virtually nothing in that game that gave you any kind of indication that you were controlling a Zoid. And I think that the developers, I can't remember if this was something I said in my review of it or not, or it was something that was said in a comment. the developers got so sort of like caught up in like the technological side of things and the coding side and being able to do this and this that they completely forgot about the fact that these are collectible toys for kids. It needed to be a game that would appeal to kids as much as anyone else, and they just did not do anything of the sort, you know.
I remember trying to play it and I just completely gave up. So what was the biggest problem with it? It just too complicated or what?
Everything. Yeah, it was. I mean, Zoids is one of those things where it has so much potential, and they went in a direction that just meant that none of that potential was even close to being looked at. They could have released that under any other name and just kept the game the fucking same. And, so it had no connection whatsoever to Zoids. And even though I was like a teenager, I did quite like collecting Zoids at the time. So when I saw there was a game coming out based on it, I was like, fucking yeah, I want some of this.
Shoot you in.
and because I saw the review and Zap, and I was like, I don't know about this. But in the end, I was like, oh, fuck it, okay, I'll give it a go. And I fucking wished I hadn't. I mean, I suppose one way of looking at it, I got a decent bit of music. Considering the amount of Ocean games I was paying 10 quid for and knowing full well they were shit, I can't complain too much.
But that's the thing, that was our Bible, before magazines came out, you picked up the box, you'd flip it over. Well, firstly, you would get the screenshot, not the screenshot, you'd get the front cover. Oh, that looks fucking great. It'd be like hand drawn. You'd flip it over and think, that looks alright, I'll buy it. And then, 9 times out of 10, it was complete shit. When Zap came along, at least they would tell you if it was crap. But 9 times out of 10, if a game was really good, unless it was something like, an adventure type game, I wouldn't buy it. But anything else, I'll buy that. Ball Blazer, I'll buy that. Alter Ego, I'll buy that. And then when I didn't enjoy the game, I used to think it's not the game. It's me. It's obviously me, but I couldn't ever figure out why. It must be good because Zap say it's good. But
I don't know if I ever went that way, but I also looked at games on the sort of flip side to what you were saying, because I liked V, which they only rated 40%. So I would be looking through it thinking, okay, how many other games are there that they don't rate, but I would actually like? Because I wasn't going to waste my money, buying a game that they said, oh, this is absolute fucking cobblers, because it was also possible that V was a one-off, but I had no idea,
I'm trying to think, I can't offhand remember any games that they said were shit, and I thought that's actually, I really quite enjoy that. A couple of games I think that did get quite high scores, and I didn't get, and I can't even remember what the second one was.
Well, I can think of...
What's that?
I can think of one game that they really did give a good score to that you are not so convinced about. I wouldn't say you hate it, but I remember you saying, you don't know how it scored so highly, and that's Hunter's Moon.
Oh, yeah, the sort of thinking man shoot 'em up. Yeah. I actually didn't really play that game, so no, I never bought it. I think it was actually later on that I kind of played it and didn't understand it, and then I think I watched you playing it, and then I kind of did get into it. But no, Thinking of Spring, did that not get quite a high?
I can't remember when it comes to that. I think that was one of those games where when they reviewed it, I think they said this is one that's really going to polarise opinion. I don't think they gave it like a scissor or anything. I think it was about 70%, something like that. So I think they realised with that one, there's going to be quite a few people who are not going to like this too much. How the hell it scored as highly as 70%, I'll never know. 7 would probably be nearer the mark for me,
And there was one game which it got I think it got a gold medal. It certainly got. I'm sure it did. And I bought it, and I thought, seriously? I went, they must have fucking been paid to say that. But then when you showed me how to play it, I thought that's actually a good game. And it's Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I couldn't believe it got a good score at the time because I just thought the graphics are shit. I fucking don't know what I'm doing here. But when you actually persevere with it, it is actually quite a good game.
Oh, I thought graphically it was fantastic. I cannot find a single flaw with Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's another one of those games where the actual sort of link between the game and the supposed subject matter is rather tenuous, but in this case I'm quite glad about it, you know, because I remember I was a bit uncertain about getting it because I hated Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I thought they were massively overhyped and overrated, and I'm talking about, you know, back at the time when they were big. But there was something about the game, as I say, I'd seen reviews, I'd seen screenshots, I just thought, this really looks like my kind of game, because it was very clearly arcade adventure, which I have always liked. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll take a chance on it, and yeah, I was glad I did. That's a fucking fantastic game.
I couldn't imagine you liking that kind of game. Just, I think, I mean, it was based on a group, which, quite frankly, so no pun intended, quite franky, I should have said. It was, other than the name, it had nothing to do with the group. It was
No.
How can you make a video game based on a fucking band? You know, it's just
yeah, exactly. So I was quite glad about that. You know, and the fact that it's quite abstract as well is another thing that would normally be a black mark as far as I'm concerned. I mean, oh no, I don't like games that are too sort of like abstract. But this got away with it. The gameplay itself is just so well done that yeah, I absolutely go along with. No, I got very close to it, but yeah, I've not managed it.
Never got to the pleasure dome then, eh?
No, I never managed that.
Yeah, I remember the other game that, in fact, there's another 3 games that, pardon me, I think Zap did kind of rave about, and I wasn't a fan of them. Sanction, Delta, and Shadowfire. Shadowfire was an early one, and I'm like...
Well, Delta they didn't really rave about. They only gave that about 74%.
What did they really?
Yeah.
A really high one.
Sanction, I think it got 90, so it did get a sizzler, but only just. I think that's massively overrated. Couldn't get on with Sanction at all. But yeah, Delta... I mean, I think 74% that they gave it, I think it's still overrated. And Shadowfire, yeah, Shadowfire was too complex for its own good. You know, it was. I'm sure somewhere in there is a decent game. I just don't have the patience for it. The problem is, 8-bit computers didn't have the, you know, the necessary sort of features to make a game like that, as far as I'm concerned. You know, so. You've got the big chunky blocky graphics which don't really look right, and because the resolution is fairly low, the control system is taking up at least half the screen. So yeah, I don't think yeah, the visuals didn't appeal to me. Looking at how complex it was, these days it would have appealed to me, but back then no. So yeah, I just couldn't get on with it at all.
They're trying to do something different, but I think it was probably a bit. The hardware probably wasn't around to actually support something like that. I think.
No, the 64 just wasn't powerful enough to do a game like that successfully. At least not in my opinion. Clearly, the guys at Zap thought differently. But
there is a bit of. I'm just thinking every game that I've mentioned that I thought was overrated, they all did have good SID tunes, and I think that was probably part of the reason that Zap they got caught up with the whole SID. I mean, the music for Shadowfire, was that Fred Gray? Was it? I think.
Yeah, it's Fred Gray's. Yeah. I don't go along with that. I think all 3 of the main reviewers quickly were able to look beyond just the music. I mean, take Miami Vice, for instance. I mean, that game only scored 36%, and yet the sound got 98%. Deservedly so. The sound is phenomenal. The game is absolute shite. So yeah, I don't think it was like, you know, being swept up by, like, you know, the great music. I think they were able to look beyond that. I mean, Delta, there you go. I mean, great music in Delta. It only got 74%.
Possibly, yeah. Of course, Gary Liddon, I think he left Zap to go and work for the is it Thalamus?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure how long into, like, Thalamus's reign, as it were, before he went over there. I think, was he there from the start?
I'm sure. I think he was. I remember reading saying that he was going to be leaving Zap to work with this company, and I remember being quite disappointed that he was leaving. So I think he was involved.
I suppose he
pretty early on.
Yeah, I suppose he must have been, because I know he had. Him and Rob Hubbard were the two that came up with the idea of using a piece of Philip Glass music as the main theme for Delta. And Stavros Vassoulis himself was not that thrilled with the idea, but they sort of outvoted him and it got put in, you know. So yeah, if he was there playing his part as far as Delta's development goes, then yeah, he must have been there from the start, because I only had one other game before that.
Did Zap ever review Drop Zone?
If they did, I never saw it, but I don't know what year Drop Zone came out.
They did. I can remember reading about it. I mean, obviously there was a lot of good games that came out prior to Zap coming along.
Oh yeah, I think I won straight off the bat.
But your favourite game, obviously. That was 1984, was it?
84, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, Zap was a massive success. I mean, it went on. I mean, it was interesting because after I had sold my C64, got an Atari ST, I still used to go up to the newsagents and I would pick Zap up. And every month it got thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, and then it got to a point it was just they were putting all these bloody cassette tapes on the front of it. I think it got to a point where, like, one of them they gave away something like 5 cassette tapes, and it was like 4 pages. There was literally fuck all magazine, but you were getting all these free games.
Well, it merged, didn't it? Because they because instead of just focusing on the 64, they were doing 64 and Amiga. I think it became, was it Commodore Power then?
That's right. Yep.
So of course, as that went on, the 64 content just kept shrinking. I think in the end it just became, like, you know, entirely Amiga based.
And then they were reviewing, like, budget. They were reviewing the same game, but it was on budget, whatever. So, so I don't know when that eventually fizzled out. I think it was like early 90s, 92, something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure when. I mean, by 92, I was very much Amiga only then. I was buying Amiga Format, was the only magazine I was getting at that point.
I was going to say, so yeah, you never ever did get your Atari ST. That was the one you were wanting, but then your dad obviously being a good
dad. We went sort of like upper level, so we went straight from 64 to Amiga. But for a good couple of years, I had both, which I was more than happy with. You know,
the 64 as well, did you? Oh,
yeah. I didn't get rid of the 64. I kept that, so yeah, I had the 64 and Amiga there.
And did you actually play both at the same time? Not quite literally at the same time, but you'd play the C64, then you'd play the Amiga?
Yeah. In fact, usually it was the other way round, because I didn't have anywhere near as many Amiga games. So I'd play, like, you know, the Amiga for a bit, and it's like, yeah, that's great, right, let's go back to 64. And, you know, for a long time, actually, I think at least a year after I got the Amiga, I was still buying 64 games. For one thing, they were a damn sight cheaper. So, of course, I was going to be buying 64 games still. So it probably wasn't until about, I think it was about 89, when I stopped buying 64 games altogether, and I was just going after Amiga then.
Interesting, because I mean, I wasn't as lucky. I had to basically, apart from the Texas, I had to fund every computer that I bought out of my own pocket, and it always involved selling the existing system to buy the new one. Um, but I couldn't actually imagine, like, when I got rid of my C64, I was trading it. I sold it for £100, and then I bought my Atari ST on the hire purchase, and initially I thought, oh, this is fantastic. And then until the music kicked in, and I do remember being genuinely disappointed. Oh, fucking hell! I've just spent all this. I'm now like I've now got to pay £20 for the next 3 years every month, and I've got a machine that's got shit sound. Fuck.
Yeah, as one of several reasons why I was rather glad that my dad decided to make the jump up to the Amiga. Yeah, the Atari ST audio is fucking awful. You've heard me say that a million times. I'm not going to change that. I can only think of one game where the audio on the ST version was better than the Amiga, and that's Star Glider, and that's very early in both their eras anyway.
Was that not Was it not completely digitized?
Well, the ST title music was,
Mm,
yeah, with the singing and that.
yeah.
The Amiga version, that only plays once while the game was still loading. And then when the game loaded, you got this really crap sort of generic tune that, yeah, was not going to be very memorable.
But I don't think I even had my. When did I get the Atari ST? I think it was 1987, and then I think I got my Amiga in 1988. I mean, I quite literally couldn't wait to get rid of the Atari ST.
Yeah, it was 87 when I got my Amiga, which is why, yeah, I had one with the Kickstart 1.2 ROM.
Aye.
Everyone else I knew up until a few years ago when I met Jim, everyone else I knew all had Kickstart 1.3s.
Aye, we didn't. I mean, probably the same as you. You got yours. There wasn't such. They didn't. I mean, the thing is, when you and I got our Amigas, they weren't. You couldn't go into John Menzies and buy it. I mean, you had to go to like a sort of specialist.
Yeah,
computer.
you had to go to an actual software place
Aye.
to buy Amiga games. Yeah, you weren't going into like your W.H. Smiths or whatever to buy them then.
Yeah, and then it was probably a couple of years later that again they realised, fucking wait a minute, this really expensive computer, kids are buying it for games, and then obviously they started boxing it with like games and that kind of stuff. But I mean, I'd had my Amiga for 3 years before
Yeah.
all these kind of bundled games came along. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really any game that I could think of that I had an Atari ST that I missed. There was, I mean, I don't even know if the Atari. I mean, the Atari ST lifespan was pretty short. I think
Yeah, it
because
was really short.
it
But
was
it was
literally.
but it was entirely self-inflicted because
Yeah,
they were so desperate to get the ST out on the market before the Amiga got released that they cut a lot of corners. So the ST was massively processor-centric, didn't have any of the dedicated hardware. Even the 64 has more dedicated hardware than an Atari ST has. And of course it had an AY chip. For audio. So yeah, so many corners cut just to get it out first. And of course, in the short term, it did work, and the ST was outselling the Amiga. But once the Amiga they got it right, they fucking pissed all over it.
aye. I mean, you say that is it the AY chip? I mean, that was a sound chip that they were using in Amstrad 5 years earlier. So you're
Yes,
putting outdated technology into a brand new machine.
that's right. But yeah, just to get it out get it out on sale as quickly as they could.
Yeah, I suppose at the time, I mean, I don't know, I can't remember. I think the ST, I don't know what it was. Was it 399 or something? When I bought it, it was it was pretty expensive. It was settled over 300 quid, which back in 1987 was a shitload of money. It was a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was 399, and the Amiga was 549. So
Aye.
yeah.
So the Amiga was this thing that you couldn't afford. You couldn't afford. But then when the what do you call it? When the Amiga 500 came out, then it became more affordable. It was, and people like myself thought, fuck it, I'm getting rid of that and getting my Amiga, because there was nothing, there was no any regrets at all getting shot of the Amiga. The only one regret is I bought, what was the last game I bought for it? Oids. I don't know if you've ever played Oids before. Oids is quite a good kind of thrust type game. It came out in the Atari ST. It never came out in the Amiga. I'd quite literally just bought it, and then I think a week later, I got rid of it. And I'm like, fucking hell! I've just bought this 40 quid game, but nah, I never looked back. And unfortunately, for the first year, us Amiga owners had to put up with shit conversions. We're just getting Atari ST conversions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just straight ST ports. But I mean, it didn't last long, and of course,
No.
back then we didn't really know any better. We were still looking as oh, how does this game look compared to the Commodore 64 or the Spectrum? Oh, it looks better, therefore the game must be better. And of course, you only have to mention Whizball to know what a load of bollocks that was. So yeah, I mean, we didn't really know any better back then. But once games were coming along that actually took advantage of the Amiga's superior hardware, things looked great for about 3 weeks, and then the fucking cutesy platform genre came along and just completely ruined the entire Amiga's lifespan. I mean, there was a good 2 years of nothing but that shit.
Yeah, I think that's largely due to like the Sega Mega Drive coming along. They thought, how can we get a bit of the market? And yeah, it was just they were trying to kind of compete.
Well, that certainly explains Zool coming along, but I mean, what about all the others? At the time it was the in thing, and it couldn't, it couldn't have died a death soon enough, as far as I was concerned. It's the number one reason why I really do not have any nostalgia for the Amiga at all. It was a great machine. There's no two ways about it, but I don't miss it at all. If I'm gonna play retro games, I'll play 64. I couldn't give a toss about the Amiga.
Yeah, no, I'm maybe not quite as sort of severe as that, but you're right. If you're, I don't have any nostalgia for the Amiga. I mean, I'll put it on. There'll be a few games, but if you're asking me, if you said to me, right, pick 10 games that you want to play in the Amiga, I'd go Sensi Soccer. Can I think? Yeah. there isn't really anything that I want to play in the Amiga.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would choose Dungeon Master, and after that, I'm struggling. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if I was to put a lot of thought behind it, I would eventually come up with 10, but it would take me a while to come up with a list. Whereas a 64, I could just reel off fucking game after game after game.
What was the first game that you got on Amiga that you thought, fucking hell, this is my dad's money has been justified? That kind of blew you away. It was so much better than the Atari ST.
It was a game that I got with it. I bought the game at the same time. The conversion of Marvel Madness, which was just staggering. Yeah. There's me saying I don't have any nostalgia for the Amiga, but the Amiga version of Marvel Madness was fantastic. They did a great job on that.
I was playing it on Sunday. I was doing an arcade conversion on the Amiga arcade conversions, and I played that, and it's hard to fault it. It's utterly flawless.
Yeah, they got everything right. I actually prefer playing the Amiga version over the coin-op original.
It's certainly why you can use the mouse, and it controls.
Yeah, I do prefer using the mouse rather than using a trackball. Yeah, that's for sure.
One of the early games that again blew my mind. I remember getting the Amiga, and then I went to this I don't know if you remember, there was a cracking crew called, I don't mean they're good lads, they were quite literally cracked games, called Red Baron. I don't know if you remember Red
Not
Baron.
Red Baron, no. I remember Red Sector. I mean, everyone
There was Red
remembers
Sector,
them.
but Red Baron, they
Yeah,
did
don't
some of
remember
the
them.
earlier ones, and there was a guy that I knew, he worked for them, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I used to go up to his house, and he had all the games that came from America. And I remember seeing what do you call it? We were talking about it. Was it in that video, or might have been talking about it just having a chat. Fairy Tale Adventure.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the role playing game. Yeah.
And it had the sort of organ music. It was like very MIDI sounding, and even now I still think it's a strikingly good game. It's nice.
If you like that, you have got to play the first two Baldur's Gate games because they play more or less identically.
Do they really? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if you like that, you will love those two. Not so sure about the third one, but yeah, the first two certainly.
Aye, are they on the PC or is it Amiga?
Yeah, yeah, PC. Neither of them came out for Amiga. Came out far too late.
I'll need to check that out. So anyway, getting back to magazines. So so Amiga format, that was your kind of magazine of choice.
Yeah. For one reason, it came with a disc on the front, and it was thanks to those discs that I got some of the games that I had, because there were a couple of games that on the surface I'd have been like, oh no, I'm not interested in that at all, but because I'd been able to have a go of a playable demo, I was like, yeah, this ain't bad actually. So, and I went out and bought it. Gemini Wing is a game that instantly springs to mind there. I mean, it does not look like the kind of game I would be interested in. But yeah, I did like playing the demo. So yeah, I went out and bought that. That was a decent one.
Thing is, Amiga format. I mean, I remember it was a pricey magazine. Was it not like £5?
No, it wasn't as much as that. It was more than like it was higher than average, but yeah, it wasn't as much as a fiver.
In fact, I'll tell you exactly how much it was. Amiga format. Amiga format. There we go. It came out. Bink. I don't remember. I don't remember getting that one.
I remember that one. Yeah, New Zealand Story playable demo. I'll give you 3 guesses how many times I played that.
Issue 1. When did that come out? I'm trying to see what it came out in 1989. See,
yeah,
that annoyed me. Look at the difference in price.
Yeah, but it was exactly the same reason as the price difference between Spectrums and 64s. It was purely because they could.
Yeah. That's right. There you go. Welcome to the first issue of a new magazine. Oh, there's 13 issues. What? Oh, of course, the ST Amiga format. That's right. I forgot about that.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't get it when it was the combination of the two. Yeah, I just got actual Amiga format. So this first edition. So yeah, I must have got it from the start then. I didn't realise it was issue 1 I'd got. But yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember having the playable demo of New Zealand Story, and yeah, I was as big a fan of it as you can imagine. But I got a free blank disc.
August £2.95 it was.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, £3. Yeah, I knew it wasn't as much as a fiver.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I mean, that was obviously the Amiga format. It was half serious and half games, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, about 50-50. Yeah. One thing that I did like about it, they always had a section set aside for like public domain demos and music discs. You know, I was always a big fan of that.
Yeah.
But the fact, I have more nostalgia for the public domain demos and music discs than I do for any of the games. So. Yeah, I remember buying in fucking hundreds of public domains. I got some great demos from those. Yeah, that was good stuff.
I mean, yeah, I suppose the public domain. I mean, nowadays you could just download them off the internet, but back then that was the source of getting. It was kind of homebrew type stuff, wasn't it? Games, demos, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I never really went in for the public domain games. I was just my main reason for buying like the demos was I wanted the music,
Mm.
and there was some great music on there, way better than anything on any Amiga game. I mean, there was some great Amiga music on games for sure, but yeah, the music discs that you could get just blew them away.
Yeah, I think the Commodore Amiga was the first computer. Well, in fact, it was the first and only computer that opened my eyes to like the demo scene.
Yeah, same here.
You know,
I never paid any
yeah,
attention to it on the 64, but on the Amiga, oh yeah, yeah, it's great stuff,
yeah.
you know. You know, if I was looking through Amiga format, which I always did every month, and I was be looking through, they always had like a section of places that were selling like public domain stuff, and it was always like, you know, a quid a disc or something. And I'd look through there, and as soon as I saw anything by, you know, by Crusaders, by Red Sector, by Catherine's, yeah, oh, there was all sorts. But if I saw something there by them, okay, what's the demo? I haven't got that one, right? I'll buy that, and I was just buying stacks of them.
There was
Good
something. I
stuff.
mean, yeah, but we're talking about what it was like to first witness a computer. You know, whether it was typing your name on the screen or whatever. But then when the Amiga came along, yeah, I mean, whilst I mean, that's the thing for me. I kind of left the C64 as the SID music was getting better and better. So I kind of bypassed a lot of it. Yeah, you had experience like the Whizball, Monty and the Run and whatever, but I left it kind of 1987, and there was obviously, in some people's opinion, better to come. But when the
Oh
Amiga
yeah,
came
yeah.
along, suddenly the music is like I think the first demo, one of the first demos I ever saw was called Demons Forever, and it's just this demon sitting at the top of the screen. It was the checkered thing like bloody ball blazer, and these balls that were just going round in a circle. And yeah,
Glitter
like
objects.
you, me and my mate, we couldn't get enough of all these demos with music, and it was kind of it was showcasing what the Amiga could do. You never really saw that kind of technology in games. I used to think, well, they can do all that in a demo. Why can't you put that in a game? But obviously, if you've got a game, you've got less memory, whatever. But yeah, I mean, the demo scene was just ridiculous. I'm just trying to see if I can actually find any. There's
Yes,
so many.
it was fantastic. I mean, demos had, you know, there was always like features that you knew were going to feature. You know, they would always have the scrolling message. They would always have like the bobs, the glitter objects that you were talking about. You know, the spheres moving around everywhere. They would always have the moving copper bars and all this. And at some point there'd be filled in vectors and stuff. You know. And yeah, some of them, the visuals were great, but yeah, as I keep saying, it was the audio that I was all about. I didn't care what I could see on the screen. I just wanted to hear great music, and thankfully, a lot of the time, I nearly said most, but actually, no, that's not the case. But a lot of the time, there was some fantastic stuff there.
I I take it you heard you were aware of the what do you call it? Aye, Jesus on ease. You've
Jesus
heard
on
that one.
Ease, yeah, I had that, yeah.
That utterly blew my mind. My mate at the time, one of my mates, he had a PC, and he'd seen my Amiga, and he went, "Oh, it's not as good as my PC." He had his 286, and he was playing whatever. I can't even bloody remember what he was playing. He might have been playing 3D Wolfenstein, whatever it was. But I remember going up to his house one day, and I said, "Go and put that audio tape into your." He had this. This was the time where you had the big, massive fucking speakers, and I says, "Just put that tape in and play it." And of course, Jesus and he kicked in. And he went, "Oh, that's really good." And I said, "I just listened to it," and it went on for like 15 minutes. He went, "Fuck, that's amazing." I says, "Do you know where that came from?" He went, "Nah." I goes, "My computer." What do you mean? I says, "The Amiga." I can knock off. And then he came up to my house and I put the disc in, and he went, "It's even now." I was actually listening to that a couple of days ago. It's just fucking extraordinary.
Yeah, the dance music version of Tubular Bells at the start, isn't it?
That's right. Aye,
Yeah,
aye.
yeah,
mean,
Yeah, I remember
music,
that.
that music wasn't my scene. I've never been into dance music, whatever.
No, I was the same. I'm not a
Aye.
dance music fan at all, but for some reason, hearing it coming out of an Amiga, I was more than okay with making an exception. If you liked that one, well, you may have even had it. The Kefren's demo, Desert Dreams. That took the Jesus on these idea and turned it up to 11.
What was it
If
called?
you
Right, I'll need to have a wee look for that. What was that one called?
so Desert Dreams, or Desert Dream, it might be singular. But yeah, it's by Kefren's.
Desert. That's the name of the demo. Desert Dream. I'll need to have a look at that.
Yeah, that was a great demo. That.
So was that, what was it? Just similar? Was it a multi disc job? Was it, or what?
It was 2 discs, that one, but it came in 2 parts. So part one would come along. You then got the sort of like small break, change the disc, and then off went part two. And yeah, that was again fucking great stuff.
But yeah, as you say, there's again, it's just what we've spoke about. There was something magical about this thing, you know. Obviously, the Commodore 64 making a noise that you could equate to. I mean, my first sort of like experience of Commodore 64 music was the Mighty Bog. He put out a lot of like C64 versions of, you know, popular tunes like Howard Jones' new song, Marillion Kaylee, Tears for Fears, Billy Idol, and he was actually making recognisable music, and obviously it got better and better and better. And even like when I first got the Amiga and the Atari ST, I remember getting that's something you never see anymore. Was you got like the music software with the notes, and you know the actual notations, and you could. And what was there was a tune, John Farnham.
Oh, The Voice.
You're the Voice. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
there was an Amiga software, and it had like the plinky plonky music. But then it kicked in with it when it came to the chorus. It would play a sample of him singing it, like just
Yeah, so,
that coming out of your computer again blew my mind. It's mental.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I had a couple of Amiga discs that would do that. I had one of Prince Bat Dance.
Yeah.
And they were good as novelty, but I was much more interested in hearing like original music rather than, you know, hearing samples or hearing covers. So yeah, it was the original stuff that I was really after.
And it was all you see. I mean, you didn't have. Was the Amiga ever online? I don't think it was. Well, it probably is now, but not back when I had it.
I think it must have been, because I mean, bearing in mind that there was like, you know, you had the Commodore 64 had its version, so I guess there must have been something for the Amiga, but I don't know what it was or anything. I never did anything like that with mine, so I'd be surprised if there wasn't anything. You know.
Yeah, as you say, it was all about there. It's there. There you go. That's issue 1 of Amiga format. There you go. New public domain library.
Yeah, and they would just, you know, you'd send off for their list, and they'd come back with this huge fucking great list that just went on for like page after page after page, and it'll just be like, yeah, I'll have that. £2.50 there per disc. That was actually one of the more expensive ones. You know, there were some places that sold them for, well, if you bought, I think it was like if you bought 50 discs, they dropped the price down to a quid a disc, and I had no problems with buying 50 public domain ones. I could find 50 public domain demos and music discs and that, and the occasional graphics one as well. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, bloody mental. 20 meg hard disk, £400. Holy shit! I can't help. So apart from Amiga format, you never. I think they obviously they had the. It was a floppy disk. It was floppy disks, of course, for the Amiga.
Yeah.
Was that a thing that kind of made you want to buy the magazine because you were getting some kind of free games? You think?
Well, the first couple of times I bought it, yeah, it was purely because of the disc. But after those two, after the first two editions, and I started reading the magazine more sort of like in depth, I realised how good the magazine was. The disc became less and less important. I bought some where I never even looked at what was on the disc. I just formatted it straight away and used it to stick
put a
like
game on it.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Was there any bits? I mean, I even now, I mean, I don't buy magazines. Even with Zap, even back in the early days, I would get to the adventure section and just go, and I wouldn't even read it. I would just flip over. Did you kind of consume the entire thing, or was there?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I would read everything. So
Yeah,
yeah, with Zap, yeah, I'd have a look through the adventure ones. 'Cause I did like adventure games if they were well done. And like even the purist strategy games, because I wasn't so big on strategy games then as I am now. Archon being the obvious exception. But yeah, I basically read it cover to cover. Yeah.
mm-hmm. So after, presumably after you sold your Amiga, you went on to the PC. Was that pretty much
Yeah, I
what
mean,
you?
there was a few years gap. I think I got rid of my Amiga in '96, might have been '97, and yeah, no, it was '96, and yeah, it's a 3 year gap. Then I got my PC in '99. I never bothered with magazines for the PC because you can get everything you want online. Even back then, you could.
I mean, I must admit, I did buy quite a few PC magazines, and but I don't know, they never after what do you call it? After, I mean, Zap was like a true magazine. It was written by gamers for gamers. It had a
Mm.
passion and honesty about it. And then the PC magazines came along, and I don't know, they would Zap would maybe, if it was a blockbuster game, you'd maybe get 2 pages. But these PC magazines, they would devote like 10 pages to one game, and it's like not interested, not interested, not interested. No, oh, there's a football game. I'll read that. Not interested, not interested, whatever. And then that got even bloody worse when it came like to consoles and Edge magazine that was so fucking pretentious. Like I just
Yeah, yeah, the Edge was quite bad for that, and then you had stuff like Ace, which was another one that was, I didn't really like for the similar reasons, and the Games Machine was well,
that's
that was a bit of a disaster, I think. Games Machine, it didn't
that
seem
was
to
Gary
last very
Penn that
long.
bloody launched that early
Yeah,
games
that's right.
machine.
I remember that. Yeah, yeah, it didn't seem to do very well. So I think Future Publishing they had their heyday, and let's face it, they had their heyday at the perfect time.
Yeah.
They should have stuck with that, just have the individual publications for like the individual machines. Because bearing in mind, Games Machine was another Future Publishing one. Well, their
Mhm.
big rivals were like the three other magazines that the same publisher was already doing. So yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense to me them starting that.
Mm. Of course, the Games magazine was a multi-format one,
Mm.
as was Ace as well. That was
Yeah,
multi-format.
yeah, Ace was yeah as well.
Yeah,
That was yeah. Obviously, yeah, I wasn't keen on it for that reason, especially as they started putting more and more space into the consoles, as like the Sega Master System came out, and
yeah.
then the first Nintendo came out, and it very quickly got to the point where it's like, yeah, I'm not interested in this anymore. Cause I had no interest in any of the consoles, because I always just thought, what's the point of getting a console when I've got an Amiga, and then later on when I get the PC, you know, I just didn't see the point of going the console route, and I still
Yeah,
don't
you
to
were
this
getting the
day.
same game for a hell of a lot less as well, weren't you?
Mm.
But so I mean, that's yeah. I stopped buying magazines. I don't know, probably mid 90s, whatever. I just kind of got bored. So just before we kind of wrap the video up, you think? I mean, presumably they still sell computer games magazines. I think they do, don't they?
I'm sure there are still a few out there. Obviously, they don't sell anything like the numbers that they used to, but yeah, they are still out and about. I'll still see them occasionally. I never look at them,
Yeah.
but I see they're there.
Yeah, I mean, do you think magazines are still relevant when you've got the internet and YouTube and God knows whatever?
I mean, I'm tempted to say no, I don't think they are, but the thing is, if they're not, then they wouldn't be bothering to publish them. So they've obviously still got the demand is there. Obviously, nothing like as much as it was in their heyday, but
Mm,
yeah, there must still be a demand there.
mm. It's like I suppose a bit like TV games. I mean, when I was lucky enough to speak to Dominic Diamond, and I said, "Do you think Games Master? Do you think it'll ever come back?" And he went, "Nah, not a chance." He says, "The internet's killed that." He says because
Yeah.
back then, Games Master was, unless Games Master was before the internet. It was the opportunity for people to see a game getting played. Oh, there's a new game by Sensible Software coming out. It's called
Mm.
Sensei Soccer. You could see people playing it. Fucking hell, that looks great. Now that's what you and I do. We play games. People can watch. If you want to watch a game getting played, go into YouTube. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, it's kind of killed it, stone dead. But
Yeah.
no, I think magazines they definitely played their part. I mean, they helped kind of promote the whole kind of video games thing, and
Oh
they were
yeah,
an
yeah,
important,
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah,
and they were an
in their
important.
heyday, they really did play a big part in it. I mean, it very much got to a point where a game publisher would release a game. They needed a good review. If it was like a mediocre review, or worse of all, if it was a shit review, their game was not going to sell.
Yeah,
So a small publisher could have been like made or broken by like a shit review. That was the power that those magazines had at the
yeah.
time.
And again, I've spoke to Gary Liddon a few years ago, and he said, yeah, he says that we were quite we were aware of the importance, the power that we wielded.
Mm.
She says we could literally make or break a game, and there was I can't remember who it was. There was a game. Was it Robo-Bolt or something? There was a game and they gave something like 12%, and he said the guy
Robo-Bolt,
actually
I
got
remember. Yeah, it got 9%. I've done a
aye,
review of it. Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think
got it. Go on.
I think the company that had released it had also done another game earlier, and it got almost an equally bad score. And he said the guy actually like phoned him and says, "Do you know what you've done? You've just crucified me. I've got no business thanks to you guys." And they're like, "Fucking hell!"
No, see, no, I would not have felt like that at all. I'd be like,
Aye.
look, you want to release shit and try and rip people off by, getting them to pay money, and this is what you're offering in exchange for it. No, I wouldn't shed one fucking tear over it.
And I think, do you think there must have been backhanders? I'm sure this is.
Yeah, there were.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure with
Absolutely
Gary
were.
Liddell, I'm sure he said that they didn't. They fucking said it exactly how it was. They would tell you that game's fucking shit. And they didn't care. But we've all seen reviews. I mean, was it Edge magazine? They reviewed Rise of the Robots and they gave it like a fucking 9 out of 10 or something.
Okay, I never saw that one. The one I always remember, it was a Zap one, when they reviewed Hawkeye, because of course Future Publishing was also the parent company of Salamis, and they
Uh,
told them right from the start, you're giving this a gold medal. I mean, at least with Hawkeye, the game was okay. I don't think it was gold medal level though. I'd have given it about like 75, 80,
mm.
yeah, at most. But yeah, got a gold medal, and because Future Publishing told them that they were going to.
But I mean, I think yeah, these and that's the thing that these magazines became gamers like us. It became our bible. We didn't have the internet to look at, so
Hmm.
whatever they told you, you thought right, that's it, and it could quite literally make or break a game.
Yeah, totally.
But it was that was an equally as fun party, having the computer, reading magazines, and you know, reading a magazine review about a game that you couldn't get. You maybe had to wait a few weeks. It just kind of got the kind of juices flowing. It got the kind of you were excited for it, and then when you did get the game, it was brilliant, really good.
Most of the time it was, yeah. I would
Aye.
say we've had the few examples that you buy the game and you're thinking, what the fuck were they on? But I would be interested to see if there were any other games like V where it didn't do well in the reviews, or certainly not the Zap reviews. That was the only one I read.
Yeah.
And see if there were any others like that where the review was not good, but the game actually was. I enjoyed playing it. I seem to remember Spellbound didn't do brilliantly, and yeah, that was a good one.
Spellbound. I can't even remember what that was. I've
The
heard of
Magic,
it. I can't even remember
yeah,
what kind of game of it.
the first one of the Magic Knight trilogy. You'd know it as soon as you see it.
Aye. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. The left. Aye. The little character thing. Yeah, it went
Yeah.
on. What was? Aye, there was a few of them. Yeah.
Yeah, you had Spellbound, then you had Nighttime, and then you had I forget the name of the third one. It had great music. The third one.
Yeah, I
I
know
can't
exactly what
remember.
you're talking about.
Stormbringer, that was it.
Aye. There must have been, as you say, there must have been games that they absolutely panned. I mean, one that I liked, but it was because I liked Football Manager, was Software Star. I loved that game, and yeah, it got a fucking diabolical review as well.
Alright,
So,
I don't know that one, but yeah,
it was
it does just highlight the fact that it is the bottom line. It's three people's opinions, opinions that are always going to be different. But we did put so much sort of faith in what they said. So if they said a game was great, we took them at their word, and if they said it was shit, then we took them at their word and avoided a game like the plague. With a few exceptions, because I say with Ocean releases in particular, normally I would have gone out and bought them on the day of release anyway, because I wanted the next Martin Galway piece of music or something. But it was always good to have the Zap review there. Ignore the review because you knew the game was going to be shit, and just look at their sound rating. Has it got a Martin Galway piece? Yes, it has. Right, in that case, I'm definitely buying it.
Anyway, that is 2 hours. That's probably quite enough for one Friday Waffle. Thanks for joining me tonight. I will be along on Sunday probably for part 2 of Amiga arcade conversions. So on that note, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and as always, thank you very much for watching.